You're listening to How to Play in a Band, the podcast that breaks down the pains, struggles, and triumphs of playing in a band. If you've ever played in a band, wanted to play in a band, or just wondered what goes through the hearts and minds of those of us who can't live without them, this podcast is for you. Hey everybody, this is James Mays, and this is How to Play in a Band. I am here with my friend, luckily I can say that, my friend, and an incredible musician and drummer, who is a multiple Austin Music Awards Best Band winner, is an Austin Music Hall of Fame drummer and band member. Everybody, this is Keith Langford. Hey Keith, how you doing?
Boy, all that really sounds so nice when I hear you say that.
Yeah, does it feel good to hear your accomplishments mirrored back to you?
Because a lot of that stuff you forget about, but yeah, that stuff did happen.
That happened over the course of your career. So over 30 records that I was Googling today. Do you remember them all?
I'm sure if you brought up little episodes of each one, I'd be like, oh yeah, that deal. But I was a little surprised when I heard that. I do believe it, but time just kind of is going real quickly and I forget about a lot of stuff I've done.
Yeah. And how can you remember it all? It's that's remarkable. My point about it is that's remarkable. Like over 30 records, recordings that you've played drums on, you've contributed to, that are out there in the world. You are a great example of a professional working musician who's supporting his family, playing music, who's living the dream, playing music.
It's true. I feel super lucky to be in that position. And I moved here to Austin in 1993 or maybe more like 91 to do that exact thing. And I'm just a really lucky guy. I got in with the right people at the right times and kept on playing. And here I am. I'm about to be 52 and I'm still playing, 150, 200 shows a year. Of course, the pandemic was really awful. That's one thing that a lot of us players, we didn't anticipate that happening. So I learned how to garden. I did some cool stuff.
Nice. I want to get back to that because that's a whole nother lifestyle shift and like entrepreneurial creativity shift to make a living in the music industry during a pandemic. Tell us first though, how you started music and how it grew into playing in bands and other bands and recording sessions, and how'd you get here?
So my dad played drums. My dad is still alive and does not play drums anymore, but there were drums around the house. And so I discovered them when I was little, and I discovered his record collection, and he had some great 70s cans that I could jam to. So that's kind of how it started. And then I ran into other people that played in high school, and I had a punk band. I was in a high school band as well. I loved that part of it. And then I ended up going to college. I played in the TCU jazz band. And it wasn't until I think I was about a junior in college. And now they have a word for it. It's called gap year, and it's completely acceptable. But in our generation, it was like, you're quitting school. What are you doing? But I wanted to move to Austin and be a full-time musician. And it happened after we played the Montreux Jazz Festival in the college band. And I just moved down here and I started playing on 6th Street, and it was tough. I did that for a year and a half. And then I went back to college. And then I started realizing I can do this. I can do the drum thing. Met some other players, started playing again. And then I ended up with a really good situation and just have kept on going.
That's amazing. How did you okay, so you're currently playing with your brother-in-law, Kevin. You've been playing with him for years in the Gourds and now Shiny Ribs. Did you guys meet way back there when you were starting?
Yeah, on 6th Street. You might remember there was a place called 6th Street Records. Do you remember that place? It was a big, it was down by, okay, we won't go into a whole.
No, you should go down there. Was it down by I-35?
It was closer to I-35, like on the other side of the street from Steamboat and all those places.
Yeah.
And the guy was like, he was trying to do a venue and also like a recording studio, and he was in a record business too. anyways, it was an odd play. Normally we played at Steamboat and the Cannibal Club, a place like that. But anyways, I ran into Kevin's band, the Picket Line Coyotes, and we played with them a bit. So when my sister started dating him, I already knew who he was. And I said, which guy are you dating? She said, the big guy. And I was like, okay, that guy's okay. Anyways, cut to the Electric Lounge year. That was a big venue for me. I was there a lot, played with lots of bands there. And the Gourds had just started. They had one record out, and I was playing with a band called the Damnations. And we played together a lot, and I really wanted to be in the Gourds, and it worked out to where I could get in with that band. So I did that for a long, long time. I don't know how many years we were together.
Tell us that story. Tell us, how did you get in with it?
Charlie Llewellyn was their first drummer, and he was this amazing Welsh drummer that I just loved. He would jump around with tambourine, do a bunch of crazy stuff. And he was an older guy with those guys, and he moved on. I think he went to Texas Monthly. So there was an open spot, and so I got a call, and I had to make this awful decision to leave what was an awesome band, the Damnations at the time. But I just felt like this would be something I could tour more and make a living, and that's what I did. And we were on a Dutch label for a long time, and so we went to Europe all the time in those days, and that was really fun. And then at some point we decided, why are we spending all of our time in Europe? We could do the same thing here and be closer to home, tour around the States, and so we did that.
Isn't that wild that the Europeans have such an appreciation for Texas music and music from the South, and they revere it? So,
absolutely. And they just those a lot of those festivals over there. It's just like, if you show up and you're wearing Levi's and a Western shirt is normal, but at the time, like they just think it's really cool, and
you're so exotic.
And they listen. They listen. They're great listeners and great fans, and I had some really great times over there. I miss it.
Oh man, yeah. It was just before the pandemic. I was at a friend of mine has a music festival in England, and Sleep at the Wheel was playing there, and so we got to. It was amazing to see like how much they appreciate that style of music, and they're in England. It's like, what's happening here? But it's you gotta love it. So you got your start on this Dutch label, and you're touring around Europe, and then you decide, okay, let's start touring around the United States, stay closer to home. So how did you make that transition?
We did play here a lot too, but we realized that doubling up like that was killing us, and we just couldn't do both. So at some point we just sort of said goodbye to Europe and just started to grow more in the United States. And then we all went on and we had started to have families, and then it started to be like everybody would get their calendars out at the first of the year and go, okay, this is my son's birthday, this is our anniversary, we can't be working then. And then it became an art form. Like we just would plan our touring around important life events at home, and it is what it is. You got to go and play. You got to go play other places, and it's where I love to travel. You have to like to travel some to be a musician, I think.
I'm sure.
But we made an art out of it, and I feel like we did pretty good with our fans.
Yeah, the last time I saw you was it in St. Louis, in the airport in St. Louis, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
We were catching the same flight. We were both transferring planes in St. Louis.
That's right.
And, we got to hang out for a minute on that plane. Yeah, you're out there. And so how do you tell us okay, so you're playing, you start touring around here, you're with the Gourds, then what?
So then at some point the Gourds decided to stop, and that was the two of the main songwriters in that band had been together even before the Gourds since they were teenagers, really.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so
Kevin
and Jimmy, who now lives in Missoula, Montana, and the Gourds always had this wonderful thing in Montana. I can't explain it, but it was just a magical connection. So we would go to Montana as part of going west a lot. And we also had these dreams of living in Bozeman or Missoula or something. And damned if Jimmy didn't make it happen. He got his three boys and his wonderful family, and he moved up there, and he has a great life up there. But anyways, those guys were together, songwriter, for so long, and it was just time for them to split up. And so I went with Kevin, and in the band I'm in now, it's called Shiny Ribs. And it was a different vein for him. He wanted to try and just do the thing where, Elvis, James Brown, just be the guy.
Oh my God, it's so fun. It's so fun. Last time I saw you all was your taping for Austin City Limits television show, which listener, this is the longest running music television show on planet Earth. And it's a super honor to even play it at all. How many times have you played it?
Absolutely. Twice. I feel really lucky to have done that. I just grew up when Austin City Limits was on TV, my parents watched it. And so when I was able to do it, it was a huge validating moment.
Oh my God, that must have felt so good. And here's Kevin wearing this for the encore, this electric Elvis cape that's sparkling.
He's just a natural ham, and he loves to do that stuff. And so now he's got, this is just technical stuff, but we do the ear monitor thing now, and he has a remote, like a David Lee Roth kind of mic, where he can go anywhere. So I can hear he can be anywhere in the venue doing whatever he is, dancing or going crazy or whatever, and we can still play together.
Yeah, because there used to be a delay. I remember back in my wireless mic days, and I'd run out in the audience, and then there's a delay. You're kind of a little bit behind the band because the sound isn't quite getting to you soon enough.
Yeah.
And now you can keep it tight.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, so good. So that was an amazing show. And then of course your son Huck was there with us watching that show.
That's a good memory because now he wouldn't be caught dead at one of my shows.
Oh man, teenage drummer. What are you gonna do? I do want to talk about Huck a little bit too, because I saw that jazz show that he did with Hunter and Maggie, and that was
that's right. They were Band-Aid kids. Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, that was remarkable to hear him, what he can do. Yeah, just third generation drummer coming out of Austin.
Just like I feel like I'm a lot better than my dad. Huck is like, I can't even go in there and tell him anything. I don't want to, because he's just gonna give me some spiel about something that I don't understand.
Yeah, and this is why we get other people to work with our kids, because they just want to show us how awesome they are. It's over. They're teenagers now. They've heard everything they want to hear from us.
Exactly.
Now
I feel like I saw one of the Dixie Chicks at your program one time.
Marty McGuire, her daughters, all three of her daughters took a band.
Certainly she can impart everything musical, but you can only talk to your kids about football or whatever it is that you could do, or dance, or to a point, and then it's like they're going to have their own way to deal with it.
Totally. I just wait to be asked, which is kind of never. He never asks, Merlin never asks my suggestions anymore. For listeners, for those of you who don't know this story, but Huck, Keith's son, and my son Merlin played in a band together for years at Band-Aid called Shooting Star Wars. And I think they started when they were 8.
Yeah, right? They were little dudes.
Yeah.
And Rafe was a little dude too, which is hard to imagine.
Rafe was a little dude too. I know. And now they're the next generation of Austin musicians.
Yeah.
Making great music. Okay, so tell us, how did you navigate having a family, starting a young family, doing all this touring?
Yeah, just like I said, luckily my wife and I met when I was already doing this world, and she already had her world, and so we both understood it. And then, like I said, we were cognizant and smart to sit down and plan our work as best we could around big life events. And in Shiny Ribs, we booked a big 4-week run in September after the pandemic, because everyone was so like, let's get back to work. And I hadn't done one that long in a long time. Normally we're 2-week runs or so, and you just get strategic about it. You can do that. You can get smart about how you tour and just don't blindly go out but for a lot of people it works to go out for months on end, and a lot of people have that freedom to do it. But there's a myriad of ways that you can make a living as a musician. You can do it locally, you can do it regionally. And so it's just a question of how to going out and trying to make that work and seeing if it does work.
Yeah, and your wife Courtney is amazing, and I'm sure you don't want to. You can't ask her to like be the sole parent for too long. 2 weeks is enough, right. I'm sure.
Yes. So when I get home, it's like I'm the one doing all the going to the store and making up for lost time. So it's weird.
How you keep a marriage, musicians. You come back, even though you're tired from touring and working, you have to recognize that it's your turn. It's now your turn. Yeah. So how do you find that internal grit and fortitude to like, oh, I'm tired. I got to dig in here. Let me help.
I know. Just being tired and doing anything, whether it's playing or traveling or being at home, is a trick. But I always tell myself, like, I can always catch up on my rest at some point. Like, I would think about when I'm going to catch up on my rest, and then I do. And I just look at examples of other musicians. Look at Keith Richards, and it's a mental thing, I think, that they have. And you can live a long, healthy, wonderful life playing music. You just have to mentally and picture it and pay attention to your body and try to be good. I'm a yogi. Like, I do that on the road. There's all kinds of ways to keep yourself healthy so that you can, when you do have those nights when you're getting in at 4 a.m., you can of course, when you're 21, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. I was just thinking about this the other day, man. I used to like, you drink a bit too much on a Friday and then go to a football game or something. And then I go play a 4-hour gig just after a shower and a meal, stay till 2, stay up. Not anymore. I'm 53 now. It's like, how do you do it? How do you balance your work life?
It's a total trick. And you just do your best to keep your energy level. Show. If you think about the show, everything else works out. Like, I don't want to be too drunk. I don't want to drink too much. Like, I want to play a good show, get rest so that I have a good show. Then everything else works out, especially on the road, having that way of thinking.
It is very much a mindset, like you're talking about, just having the mental focus and then the discipline to take care of your body.
Yeah. And just road food is challenging.
A lot of trips to the grocery store and packing it in the van.
Yeah. We do a bus now, and so you can put stuff in the bus that is healthy or try, but that doesn't always work out either.
If you can get it at the Piggly Wiggly on your way through Nebraska.
We have one of those in San Antonio.
There's a Piggly Wiggly in San Antonio.
There was when I grew up.
All right.
Yeah.
I just remember going to them in Nebraska and having Cosmo magazine covered up with a piece of cardboard. Didn't want to see, there was no skin. You couldn't see the fashion magazines or anything. It was all covered up.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're making this transition. You're living this life as a musician. You're doing it. You're living a healthy, you've got the mindset, you're taking care of yourself. You've got a family. You're a great example of how to do this and have longevity doing this music thing. Talk about some of the times when you're just like so nervous, your heart is in your throat. You're like, what am I doing here? I don't belong here. How am I going to do this? What do you do in those moments?
One thing, this isn't so positive, but one thing I tell Huck is, like, he has like a band thing, a competition or something. I just say, just think about how much money you're making. But like, it's like, if I'm a surgeon and I've got to perform something and I'm making this much money, it's like, okay, I'll get nervous. But like, for instance, Austin City Limits, like, it's like, yeah, it's going to help my career be wonderful. The gigs will be bigger. It'll be badass. But like, at this moment, am I getting paid? Not really. So I don't know.
There's no risk. You're like, no risk, no worry.
Goofy, but I do tell people that as a joke. I don't know. I mean, if you're prepared and but you don't want to over prepare. You also want to be somewhat loose. And we have a Christmas show we're doing right now, and I don't really know the songs that well because we just did one quick rehearsal, and so we're doing like a Christmas tour. And I found myself getting a little, oh hell, but if you make a plan, it's good. It's funny. It's great. It's not bad. If you start thinking of it that way, then your level of freak out gets lower. And we really clammed up once. We have an arrangement of Linus and Lucy we're doing right now, that Vince Guaraldi. And yeah, we have a new bass player that did composition at UT. And so he's written this. It's the first time I used to read big band charts at TCU. And so I know how to do it, but I haven't done it in many years. So I'm reading that. I'm like, oh my God, but it was somebody else made a horrible clam, and it was fine. Like then we laugh and we go on, and then there's the next song,
Yeah, you don't take yourself too seriously. You just
right.
Enjoy it, laugh. Hey, musician friends, this ad is for you if you know you could be playing better, have way more fun doing it, and you're just not quite sure how. Well, maybe it's time you play in a band. Go to howtoplayinaband.com and invest in your musical future. You'll learn how to hack and model more than 35 years of experience to have you and your band sounding better in as little as one rehearsal. I'm going to give you my 3 secrets to amplify your enjoyment and your skill level 10x without really trying that hard. Plus, you're going to have access to bandmate secrets, booking secrets, and audience secrets to make sure that you and your band achieve the success that you need. And if you need extra help, you can join our How to Play in a Band coaching program to supercharge your success. You don't have to do it alone. Go to howtoplayinaband.com and let us help you find the sound of your future. Are you watching the new Beatles documentary?
I was going to tell you, I'm sure you're probably talking to your students a lot about that, but if you want to know what it feels like to be in a band, you should watch that, because they have Bentleys and mansions, and there's not a better, more successful career. And yet it's like when they're together, that's exactly what it's like for your garage band. Everything about it is the same.
Just in a room with uncomfortable chairs sitting around.
Yeah, and just kind of going through, like, how are we going to play this song? Creatively, it's the same. Personality-wise, it's the same. There's one guy that's kind of like making stuff happen. There's another guy that's being quiet. It's such a cool thing. I love it.
Me too. And it's so insightful to see how the Beatles do it. And just see how they did it. Yeah, I'm so happy that's out right now. And is there going to be a Stones one?
I don't think so.
Wow. Peter Jackson, you never know.
Yeah,
Find
right.
some Stones vault somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm sure there is one. Okay. Talk to us about, I like to talk about this concept that I call musical vulnerability. It's not really a term we use a whole lot when we're playing with each other, but the idea of what we show to each other as musicians and how we show our weaknesses and how that really ends up becoming a strength musically. Can you talk to some of that, like how you do that as a musician and how you respond to other musicians who are showing a level of vulnerability?
So like musically, like being at a different level than maybe your other people you're playing with?
Yeah, it's interesting because it sounds like we don't really use this language as musicians much. And so everybody's sort of answering it different.
That's how I heard it. So I'll just tell you how I heard it. Like, everybody's got their own level of ability, and you're always going to find somebody that is better than you at your instrument. Always you'll find that, or somebody that's worse. And so that's the whole thing. It has nothing to do with that. It's all about, I have my thing that I do that I like and that I want to try to grow, of course, musically. But when I get with other musicians, and what a lot of musicians aren't good at is listening. That's the biggest part of it. Listening to what everyone else is doing and then thinking, how can I fit in with that and make it exciting? Or how can I not, maybe I don't want to play. But to me, that's what being musically vulnerable means, is like just opening yourself up to like, okay, I'm not here to do this, my thing that I do really good. I'm here to listen to what they're doing and then maybe add something with that. When you have people all thinking that way, that's when it comes together as something.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You're hearing it right here from somebody who's doing it all the time. So what are some examples of when when that's happened where, I don't know, maybe it wasn't working and all of a sudden somebody decided to listen more and then bang it.
Yeah, it's really easy to tell if you're playing and your part or somebody else's part just sticks out and doesn't feel right, then it's wrong. And so then you just think, is it because it's too complicated of a thing that I'm doing, or is it because it's too simple of a thing that I do, or why is it wrong? And then you try to move the bar to something different, and then just keeping it until it feels like it fits and makes something happen. And it doesn't always happen. Sometimes you try to do that and it's just not going to happen, and then you just want to move on to something else. But I can't think of a specific. Just it's always happening, even during a show. In the minuscule moments of a solo section or something, you might think, what if I did this? And you do it and it's great. Maybe you do it again. Or if you do it and it's not good, then well, that didn't work.
It's like a conversation, right? You don't want to walk all over, you don't want to talk all over people. You want to give them space to come back
Right.
and forth and have a musical conversation. Do you jam a lot as a band? How do you, when you come together and rehearse, is it around specific?
We really don't, but there was a time when we did. Yeah. But I think we're going to start working on a new project, and that will be some amount of jamming, where there'll be maybe someone has an idea and we all just kind of mess around with it, or just like the Beatles thing. And those guys are just goofing off all the time. That's such a great part of it. And I've done plenty of that. So just because I'm not doing it right now, I would say definitely do as much goofing off and jamming as you can, as long as the people, your neighbors, will put up with it.
Yeah, it is fun to watch them like change the lyrics and sing silly things and just not take their songs. They're the Beatles, for God's sakes, and they're not taking themselves seriously.
I think, and that is the greatest thing, is to not take yourself too seriously and then just let something happen within that.
How about an example of like when you have noticed that playing less is more?
Yeah, I just basically play what it is that I would want to hear if I was listening to somebody. And so if I find myself doing something that's like, how listenable is that? Maybe it's a cool thing I'm doing, but like someone's going to walk by and they're going to hear that and they're just going to be like, that just sounds like a bunch of racket or whatever. So that just has happened to me many times, where I just come back to like thinking about how listenable and is this thing that we're doing. It should, I can't think of a specific time. And I've just always, it is a progression. If you talk to the 18-year-old version of me, I wouldn't have said anything like that. I would have said like, did you hear that double bass or whatever? And maybe you do have to go through that to learn.
When we're younger, we're developing our chops too. And it's like, it's impressive what we can do, and you want to show people what you can do. And I think as you mature as a musician, you start to realize that like, oh no, there's like, we talk about the difference between a lead and a supportive role a lot, how to play in a band, like understand, okay, I'm in a supportive position right now. So what I'm doing is I'm like helping lift up these other parts that are happening, that are popping out front, the vocal line or the guitar line or the keyboard line right now. And I'm accenting and supporting that. Then there are moments where it's like, okay, now I'm taking a lead role. I'm actually out front melodically. When did you start to understand the difference in those as a drummer?
Just doing some jazz in my early life and being around some older players and stuff, and realizing that every band is an ensemble, even if it's someone that's an extreme crazy soloist. That's awesome, but there's an ensemble that has to be happening to support that and make that happen. And there's like cool quotes around, I can't remember who, I'm going to mess this up. It might be Dizzy Gillespie. Somebody's like, let the drummer sound good. What does that mean? That means that at that moment, he's playing as an ensemble player and he's letting the other thing come up. So that's what we do. When we hear something that's happening, we sit back and we become part of the ensemble and we let that happen.
Part of that, yeah, that conversation that we were talking about earlier. That just
right.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I'm gonna mess up that. I got to figure out whose quote that is. It's a great quote, but
all right, we'll chop around, make it sound perfect. Tell me a couple stories about playing on that Doug Psalm record.
Yeah, so Doug was a Gord's fan, and he would come to our shows at the Hole in the Wall, and he would sit in with us. We would do some Sir Douglas Quintet song, and he would sit in with us, which was such a thrill. And then so when it came time for him to do a record, we got to record some of the songs with him. And I still remember he was in the control room singing and playing guitar while we were playing. And I just remember hearing him come through my cans and just being like, oh my God, playing it with Doug Psalm at this moment. So cool. It was a very lucky thing to be around him.
What was he like creatively? How did he run a session?
He had he just went for it. Like he was launched into it. Like there wasn't like a lot of talking about it.
He just play and you jump in.
Yeah. He was a real character. And we played with him around the country quite a bit. He would meet us in San Francisco and stuff. And he would drive his Cadillac just cross country to a gig. And in Europe too. That's the other, I think maybe that's where we first met him, because he had a big Europe thing. And so we were over there at the same time. I think that's probably how.
Did you have the same booking agent or something? How did you guys cross paths?
We just maybe we're at the same festival, but his drummers, Ernie Durawa, is here in town still. And he's a friend of mine and just a real wonderful human and a great drummer. And he has a great book out right now too that I encourage people to read.
Yeah, Ernie. Got to check out Ernie. And what do you remember the name of the book?
I don't.
Okay, we'll just look up Ernie. I don't know. I'm dyslexic, so I'm not even going to try to spell his last name.
Yeah.
Maybe you can do it for us.
Durawa, I think.
Okay.
Durawa. He's a real treasure, that guy.
Man, amazing. And he was actually one of the OGs at the Strange Brew, getting the Strange Brew up and running and sounding good, which is now Captain Quack's. And we're actually doing our Band-Aid School of Music showcase there next weekend. It's one of the best sounding rooms in Austin.
Oh, I agree. I'm so happy that it's going again and that y'all are doing that.
They've actually reinforced it. They built the stage up higher. They put sandbags under the stage, so you're not getting any of that bass hum under the stage. The old stage was perfect, but it was much shorter and it was harder to kind of have a bigger show. And they arched the ceilings and still managed to make it really sound great in there. We spend an afternoon in there with performances all day and ears don't get tired at all. It's remarkable.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So Ernie, thank you, Ernie, for getting that going for sure. Yeah. Okay. So what else did I want to ask you? I wanted to ask you about, oh man, I didn't want to interrupt you during the Doug Psalm thing, but I know. So I'm reading Modern Drummer and there is Keith Langford doing an interview in Modern Drummer about playing in Levon Helm's studio up in Woodstock.
Right. That
was Levon still alive then? Was this?
He was around that session a bit. He was going to the city. I think he was getting treatment at that time, but he would come in, and Larry Campbell was the producer of that record, who was an amazing person to be around. And that barn up in Woodstock is such a great creative space. Yeah, so I'll never forget Levon came into the session while we were in the middle of recording, and he came straight over to me and shake my hand. Normally it's the lead singer or the guitar player, but he came to the drummer to shake my hand. He said, "You need anything? You need a drink?" He was just very open and gracious and cool, and that was a magical experience. All of that was.
Man, legendary drummer, singer, the band.
Yeah.
Is that where they recorded, in that studio?
No, they had, I think they may have done, no.
I know they had Shangri-La in LA because Rob Fraboni was the engineer there. who
Right.
happens to be Merlin's godfather, one of Merlin's godfathers.
Okay.
And I know he and Levon were obviously really tight. He did the sound on The Last Waltz.
Oh, wow.
But I've never met him or had any interaction with him. So that must have been amazing to.
Yeah, it was the place he created there was what a vision. I'm going to turn this barn into a barn dance / studio. And on the weekend of that, I think it was a 2-week session or something. And on the weekends, they run the show in there, and all the studio stuff gets packed away, and they bring in people, and it's a show. And so we went into this New York City and had our own show during that weekend, and then we came back and set the studio back up.
How cool. How fun that must have been. It's really beautiful up there too. It's nice and quiet in Woodstock.
I know. I would love to live up there. I remember that it was a really harsh winter they had. And so I think it was day after South by Southwest, we flew up there. So it was March, and it was still just so cold and wintry and snowy,
That's the thing about that part of the country is like March, and you're like, oh, it's supposed to be spring. We're Texan. We're like, February, it's spring. What's happening? It's March. It's still cold. Oh, that's nice. So I like the cold. I like to get warm and wear a coat. It's nice to not be in short sleeves for part of the year. Okay, we're in the home stretch. Rapid fire questions. These are just for fun.
Sure.
Okay, what is the last show that you
binged on TV? Oh, it's not a show, but the first thing that came to mind was I just watched the new Dune because I'm a Dune nerd from back in the day. So that was really cool for me to see. Oh, this is that scene, and they redid that, and the books too. I liked those as a kid, so
it was such a great version.
I thought so too.
I watched it and I wanted to watch it again, like immediately.
I did too. I wanted to go to a big screen. I'm sure it's amazing on IMAX or something.
We've got to go watch it on IMAX. Let's find it and go watch it. Okay. What is that? Okay, we just did your favorite movie, so we'll just move on. What is a concert that you'll never forget?
Tom Waits at the Paramount. That was quick. That came to my mind quick. Whatever that year was that he came, we got lucky and got to go to that deal. Man, that's the kind of performance that like every musician should see something like that, where you think you have a style that you love, whether it's something heavy or whatever. But if you go to something like that and it's no style, it's just good. And it can open your mind like it did me. I was like, wow, that's just a guy clanking on a hammer and a
saw and a bone.
And a piano. And I'm I just can't take my eye off this.
What an artist. Yeah, I saw Laurie Anderson there at the Paramount. She is similar kind of thing, just such an artist that is so compelling. I really do wish I would have seen that Tom Waits show though. He's one of mine.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So what's an artist or two that you feel like has most influenced you?
I really love Stan Lynch, Tom Petty's drummer. I feel like I got a lot from him. And I love Stuart Copeland. I love his thing. Of course, Charlie Watts I was just watching, after he passed away, I was watching a bunch of Charlie Watts Stone stuff. And I noticed he kept the same symbols, everything his whole life. And he was just a real appreciator of old things, and he would never change stuff. Like you can hear the hats and that it's all the same sound. But I noticed he was sitting on like some old 60s drum throne that's just like about this thin. And it's sitting on a drum throne for a couple of hours and playing, like it doesn't feel good. And I just thought about him. He's like 30 years older than me, and here he is sitting on this and just completely rocking. It's awesome.
He probably tried to change at one point. Was like, I'm going back.
Yeah, I know.
It's too much cushion.
I love that kind of stuff. I love that musicians are two ways. Either you like keep the same old thing going all the time, you like Willie and Trigger, and that's your thing, or you love to change every time, change something. neither one's wrong.
That's one of the things I really loved about seeing the Stones was that, you know, I was thinking like, wow, they have been playing these songs for 50 years.
Yeah.
And they're playing them. Is that right? Is my math right? Yeah, my math's right.
Yeah.
And they're playing them like I remember them on the record. And somehow they're finding life, like they're putting life into it. You know what I mean? That's an art in itself.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Keeping something that's really old hat and keeping it fresh. That's something.
Okay, last one. What books are you reading? What's on your nightstand?
Oh, okay. I'm reading this book right now about this part of Honduras called Isha. There was like it's not Mayan, it's a different civilization that was there at the same time as the Maya. And this is a book about the discovery of that and just this crazy forest. Like it makes the Amazon look like something tame, like this crazy snake. And I love that kind of thing. It's called City of the Monkey God, or they also call it the White City. And so I just like that there's still stuff to be discovered like that, because it's pretty recent, I think. And there's all kinds of amazing artifacts and stuff coming out of Honduras.
Wow, Keith Langford, man.
If only I could go there and do that, but that's not in the cards for me. I'm not going to get bit by a axe snake or whatever that deal is.
Forget it.
No,
Forget it.
I'll just read a book about it.
There you go. Transport yourself. Keith, thank you so much for sitting there. This is great, and we haven't been able to get coffee in a long time. So
yeah, this was fantastic. Let's go get coffee. And I'm glad you're still doing your thing, and those kids are getting some great stuff from you. Keep it going is what I say.
I'll do it. All right. Thanks, Keith.
All right, take it easy.